فمن يعمل من الصالحات وهو مؤمن فلا كفران لسعيه وإنا له كاتبون.
ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، فإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. فيا ربي حمدا ليس غيرك يحمد، ويا من له كل الخلائق تصمد. لك الحمد كل الحمد لا مبدأ له ولا منتهى، والله بالحمد أجدر. وأصلي وأسلم على من بعثه الله بالحق، نبينا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا محمد bin Abdullah alayhi afdal salatu wa atammu taslim, wa ba'd. We thank Allah, we praise Him. We extend our profound gratitude to His infinite favors and mercy that He has actually blessed it upon us. At the same material moment, we extend peace and salutation upon the masterpiece, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his household, his companions, and all of those who would follow their righteous guided path to the day of accountability. Having said that, brothers and sisters in Islam, we greet ourselves with the Islamic greeting of the people of Jannah, that is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After that, we are today being the 26th of Shaban, corresponding to the 18th of March 2023. In the masjid here we are between Maghrib and Isha prayer. We ask Allah to make us from among those at the end of this sitting we will be told, Kumu maghfuran lakum wa ma dhalika ala Allahi bi'aziz. The Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said in a very authentic narration that Majtama'a qawmin في بيت من بيوت الله يتلون كتاب الله ويتدارسونه فيما بينهم إلا نزل عليهم السكينة وحفتهم الرحمة وغشيتهم الملائكة أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. That there wouldn't be a group of people gathered themselves in the masjid discussing the Quran and then the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except that tranquility and mercy would be descended upon them. We ask Allah to make us from among those. Today, as we have promised ourselves that we are going to have a sitting of a series of Ramadan, and then the language that we're going to use, as you are aware of, is English. So the only thing we could do to apologize to those who want us to speak the local language, honestly, for this is actually the English we are going to speak. So they have to pardon with us on that respect. So today, as we said, being the 26th of Sha'ban, and then the next month is Ramadan, then there is the need for us, as the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad has actually authenticated to have been proven right, is that before the coming of Ramadan, there is an adequate preparation that is made for people to be aware about the rules, the regulations, and the protocols that is needed to be observed during the month of Ramadan. So this series is going to be today and tomorrow, inshallah. So today's section is going to be a presentation based on where we'll get to, and tomorrow we will climax the presentation and then open forum for question and answer section. So one sitting wouldn't be enough if only you want to get the entire understanding of what we want to discuss here. But before that, I want to actually make that caveat that this is a sitting that we, hoping that we ourselves to put into practice, but then not to hear something that has been actually happening contemporarily, there you go to actually wanting to implement it over there. As it were, we are to enlighten ourselves to know what is right, hoping that in the near future, if we become the authority, then the right thing will be done. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding of this. And then the book that I have in my hand is Samaruddani Sharhu Risala, written by Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. A Tunisian is the one who wrote this book. The book was actually written at Tunisia. It was actually based, I just want to summarize the entirety for why this book was written. In fact, it was one of the scholars who are memorizers of the Quran. He has his student kids that he teach them Quran. He teach them how to memorize the Quran and read the correct Quran pronunciation and all of that. By name Abu Mahraz. So upon this, he actually said to Imam Zayd al-Qayrawani, the author of this book, that Allah has granted him the ability to actually have memorized the Quran, and he is teaching the kids as well. So, but then Allah has not actually blessed him with the fiqh, meaning the Islamic jurisprudence. So he is seeking from Imam Abu Zayd, the author of this book, if a book can be written in terms of what? Islamic jurisprudence, so that he can be used as an additional lesson for the student he teaches. So Imam actually accepted that call and then wrote this book. From then till today, we have it and we are reading and then explaining it among ourselves. In fact, and he has even made clearly at the beginning or in the introductory aspect of the book. We ask Allah to have mercy on both of them. So what lesson are we deducing from this? If you find that you are not well versed in an area, but then you are in the other, then there is a need for you to correlate and then get someone who is very good in that respect, and then he can actually deliver what is better for that respect. So we have the Bab Fi Siyam or Kitabu Siyam that discuss about Ramadan. Ramadan is the 9th month of the month of Ramadan, or the month of what? The Islamic calendar. As Allah says that the calendar month with him is 12 months. So Ramadan happened to be the 9th in terms of what? Systematic arrangement of these months. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the month of Ramadan, or the fasting of the month of Ramadan, was made compulsory to him 2 years after Hijrah. 2 years what? After Hijrah. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fasted 9 different Ramadan. 9 different Ramadan was the number of Ramadan the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fasted in his whole life. We ask Allah to grant us this understanding. So before we would actually make any progress, there is a way we should understand the series upon which this lecture is going to be delivered, and that is as follows. We would first look at the essence and the virtues of Ramadan. And we will look at the meaning of Sawm in our Arabic text and then translate it in English as well. And then we will look at the ahkam, rules and regulations that pertain to the person who is supposed to have fast, and then the person who by means of ailment or sickness wouldn't be able to fast. We will be looking at issues related to that. And then Thubutu Shahr Ramadan, authenticating the fact that the month of Ramadan is there for fasting. Right? We will look into that. And then we would also look at the what they call issues that might actually pop up that would make a person to be exempted from fasting. We will look into this, inshallah. And then we will look at the number of people who have been captured under this in a summarized form, inshallah. And then in the end, we will be looking at, or thoroughly we'll be discussing about things that will nullify your fasting as a fasting person. And then we would hoping there would be subheadings under these are actually discussing. And then in the end, we will look at someone who have not been able to fast, and then there is the need for him to what? Pay it back. What ruling is actually pertaining to that? So this is actually the methodology upon which this presentation is going to be done. But then the book I introduced first is the book that is written on the Maliki school of thought. When we say the Maliki school of thought, we have the first school of thought, or based on chronological arrangement, we have that of Abu Hanifa bin Nu'man, then we have Imam Malik bin Anas, and then we have Imam Shafi, Idris Shafi, and then we have Ahmad bin Hanbal. That are the school of thought, the famous school of thought, not the only school of thought. These are the famous that contemporarily we are using. However, there are other school of thought of that of Sufyan bin Uyayna, Sufyan al-Thawri, and then Awza'i, Lays bin Sa'd. These are all school of thought that we have, but then we don't have them being famous and then spread across. These four are the ones that we have had. Students who learn from these scholars have had it that they want to write their malams or their scholar methodology in terms of what? Jurisprudence. So we are using the what? The Imam Malik school of thought for this book. But then this book comes with something which is different from that in terms of what? Analysis, in terms of what? Establishing fact to issues. You understand that? So this is the Maliki school of thought in terms of the fiqh, that is the Islamic jurisprudence. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. So, like I told you, the book was written out of a request, right? So you can see that he has discussed about Tahara, he discussed about Salah, and now he's discussing about what? Siyam, that is fasting. So you can see that وَصَوْمُ شَهْرُ Ramadan. He started by saying وَصَوْمُ شَهْرُ Ramadan, and then the fasting on the month of Ramadan, meaning it is a continuation from somewhere. Because he has discussed what? Tahara, Salah, and now he's here. So remember, he is actually continuing from there. And that book, amazingly, all that you will see in terms of inscription, I just want you to see, this, anything below the line, is not part of the book itself. It is the explanation to the book. So anything that you can see above the book, above these lines, is the book itself. So you can see that it was a summary. So entirety, you can see that. Anything on the line, in this line, you can see that. It is the book itself. But then the inscription that you can see in red and then black writing, then it is an explanation to the book. I hope you are clear. So here we are reading the matin of the book, not the explanation. So the explanation is what we are going to do in English, in other words. So we have, he says that, وَصَوْمُ شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ فَرِيضَةٌ يُصَوْمُ لِرُؤْيَةِ الْهِلَالِ وَيُفْطَرُ لِرُؤْيَتِهِ. That the month of Ramadan, the fasting of Ramadan, is being fasted upon sighting the crescent. This is the first criteria. Upon what? Sighting the crescent, and then the crescent is the beginning, the day you are expecting to see the earlier moon of that month. So he's saying that the fasting of Ramadan is based on that. Unlike we are saying before, I made a caveat. People today, or since last week, have already brought a date that they are going to fast. So you can see that this is what is actually against the rulings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ clearly said in hadith that we sumu li ru'yati, that we should fast upon sighting the crescent. So don't actually look at a calendar and then give out a date on that. It's actually wrong. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ could have done that, but then he gave them upon the principle which they should actually depend on that. وَيُفْطَرُ لِرُؤْيَتِهِ. Equally, when it is the end of Ramadan, we need to end the Ramadan upon seeing the crescent of Shawwal. I hope I'm clear here. So seeing the crescent of Shawwal is a determination that Ramadan has ended officially. So this is one thing we need to know. And he's saying that وَكَانَ 30 يَوْمًا أَوْ 29 يَوْمًا. It is 30 days or 29 days. 30 days or 29 days. So this is 29 days or 30 days. Why is it like that? And he says that فَإِنْ غُمَّ الْهِلَالِ فَيُعَدُّ 30 يَوْمًا مِنْ غُرَّةِ شَهْرِ الَّذِي قَبْلَهُ ثُمَّ يَصُومُ وَكَذَلِكَ فِي الْفِطْرِ. So he says that when you have sighted the crescent of the moon, then it's a determinant for you to fast. But then if you have not sighted it, then there is a need for you to complete the month we are in. That is the month of Shaban. So we complete it 30 days, and then automatically we have the first day or the next day as the first of Ramadan. Islamic calendar, we don't have 31 days, neither do we have 28, as in February. And then in March, for example, it's 31st, and then February is 28th. In Islamic calendar, it's 29 or 30, not more, not less. So, and then he says that, فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ, if it is when the weather, and now that is Allah is testing us with that. You have studied that when the day of observation is due, that is when the weather will be what? Very dim and unclear, and it will be very hard for you to sight it. We ask Allah to grant us understanding to this. So it is something that we need to take note of, that Allah is testing us, but then there is a need for us to also be obedient to the authority that have actually been elected or has been chosen by Islamic community to be as the leader of the community. Once he come out with the timeline for that Ramadan, then there is a need for us to obey. I hope you get that clear. That's why I made the caveat beginning of the session. So, and then he's saying that وَيَبِيتُ الصِّيَامِ فِي أَوَّلِهِ وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ الْبَيَاتِ فِي بَقِيَّتِهِ. That there is a need for you to actually make the intention at the first day of Ramadan, for example, as the Aisha radiallahu anha hadith actually came to point, that the Prophet Muhammad says that the fasting person must have to take the niyyah, has to make the intention a night before. With this book came with something establishing that. But then this book, like I told you, that وَيَبِيتُ الصِّيَامِ فِي أَوَّلِهِ وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ الْبَيَاتِ فِي آخِرِهِ. So for the month of Ramadan, it is either 28, 29 or 30 days. So you would have to make the intention of fasting throughout the Ramadan. But then this book, like I said, it was also written based on the Hanbali school of thought that says that we need to make intention each and every day. Are you getting that? So the difference is not anything that is very important. But then what is needed for you is to make the intention from even the beginning. The reason why, because for this discussion, we are backing the Maliki school of thought, because you as a world person who is fit and good health, then you don't have to make the intention of today I could fast, maybe the next day I wouldn't fast. You know that the month of Ramadan is in chain. So you have to fast from the first day to the last day unless otherwise stated. That is when you happen to have ailment, problem or something, or traveling coming to your way. However, all things being equal, there is a need for you to make the intention of fasting throughout Ramadan. I hope you are clear here. So that is the reason why we are with the Maliki school of thought on this perspective. Okay? He said that وَيَتِمُّ الصِّيَامُ إِلَى اللَّيْلِ, and then the siyam, the fasting, has to be taken from tulu' al-fajr. When the fajr is actually, that is at dawn, that is when we start to take the fast. And then we would continue ila al-layl, that is the beginning part of the night. That is when the sun has settled. Am I clear? So ila al-layl, not in the midst of the night like we are. As some people actually break their fast at this time, maybe after Maghrib. It is wrong. Because of the hadith, or because of this verse, they are using that ila al-layl to the night. The night here means awwal il-waqt ay min ghurub ash-shams, when the sun has settled. That is just at the time of pre-Maghrib prayer. And then he's saying that وَمِنَ السُنَّةِ تَعْجِيلِ الْفِطْرِ وَتَأْخِيرِ السُّحُورِ, that it is the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is that he hastened the fitr when it is time for you to break the fast. Don't say you are not too much hungry, so you want to actually hold it on to that. You don't have any reward on that, and even you are actually contradicting and disobeying the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hope I'm clear on this one. So ta'jil is al-fitr, hasten to break the fast. Hasten to break the fast, even if it is a what? A tamr. If you have a dry date, you can use it. A rutab, it is actually a wet date, a fresh one, you can use that. That is what is prescribed. If you don't get, you can use the normal date. We are using the dry one. If you don't get, then you can actually resort to a ma, that is water, a very clean water that you actually use for breaking of the fast. Not necessarily you having food to eat, because some people have it that even if I should break the fast now, is there food for me to eat? Then let me even continue till I get home. This is wrong. Break the fast when the time is due. Once you are done with that, then you actually would go wherever food comes, you come across food, then you consume that. I hope everything is clear on this point. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. And then he said, وَتَأْخِيرِ السُّحُورِ, the time for you to take the dawn meal, you need to what? Eat it at the later part of the time. Don't eat it very early. You need to relax and eat it at the latest part, just before the time for Salatul or shortly before the time for Salatul Fajr. So you need to delay the suhoor. Don't eat it in the mid of the night. You delay it a bit, and then the ta'jil, that is breaking the fast, need to be hastened. You can see the contrary on that. And then he said, وَإِن شَكَّ فِي الْفَجْرِ فَلَا يَأْكُلْ وَلَا يُصَوْمُ يَوْمَ الشَّكِّ. That if a day of shak, the day of uncertainty, when approaches you, then there is no need for you to fast. When that day you are actually in a uncertain situation, وَلَا يَزِيلُ الشَّكُّ لِلْيَقِينِ. Things that are uncertain don't depend on that in making rulings. So again, can someone say that I want to fast, even if it is not the day of Ramadan, at least I have fasted. If it is that, I have not lost anything. It's wrong. That's why he says that وَلَا يُصَوْمُ يَوْمَ الشَّكِّ لِاحْتِيَاطٍ بِهِ مِنْ رَمَضَانَ. You cannot fast in a day of uncertainty and say that even if it is not the day of Ramadan, at least you have fasted and you have not lost anything. This is wrong. The day of shak, there is no fast in that. وَمَنْ صَامَهُ كَذَلِكَ لَمْ يُجْزِئُهُ وَإِنْ وَافَقَهُ. That even if you have fasted and then it has actually correlated or it has actually tied with the day of Ramadan, it's not appropriate. Because it is Yawm Shak, the day of uncertainty, because you are uncertain. Remember we said about what? Taking intention, making your intention. So now what are you making your intention? You are making your intention out of nothing because you are uncertain as to whether today is Ramadan or not. You get the reason why you are not supposed to fast. وَلِمَنْ شَاءَ صَوْمُهُ تَطَوَّعًا أَنْ يَفْعَلْ. But then the one who, for example, has been fasting Mondays and then Thursdays, and then it happened that this Monday happened to be a day of shock, a day of uncertainty. So you can pray, you can fast with that intention of the Mondays and Thursday, but not fasting on the day of Ramadan. I hope you are clear on this. So this is what we need to be taking note of as we make a progress. Like I said, we're going to read it. It's not a class. So we would spend much time discussing and bringing evidence from here and there. We just have to understand it as a way of lecture presentation. And then he says that وَمَنْ أَصْبَحَ فَلَمْ يَأْكُلْ وَلَمْ يَشْرَبْ ثُمَّ تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَنَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ مِنْ رَمَضَانَ لَمْ يُجْزِهُ. That the day when you have wake up in the morning, you've not eaten, you've not also drank anything, and let's assume it is actually around 11 to 12 a.m. a.m. You understand? He said, ثُمَّ يَبَيِّنُ لَهُ أَنَّهُ ذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ مِّن رَمَضَانَ لَمْ يُجْزِهُ. So you are not supposed to say that you want to break the fast. But honestly, this point of Risala, we are not backing it for the following reasons. He says that if you wake up for a day, and then in the middle of the day, let's say assuming 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. or 12 noon, and then you happen not to eat since morning or since morning, or you have not drank anything, and the only information getting you that today was a day of fasting, and you happen not to have eaten since morning, what are you supposed to do? He says that you do what we call imsak. You don't eat, you don't drink till the day to the sunrise, to the sunset, and then after Ramadan you pay this day. Please, this is a point that we need not to take it. It's not authentic. It has no any establishment. The reason is as follows. The time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what happened was that, and this can be found in the hadith or the book of Imam al-Baghawi, Sharh al-Sunnah of Imam al-Baghawi. He discussed this matter there. If we wake up, for example, in the morning, and then around 8 o'clock, around 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or even 11 to 12 noon, and you are going to be in the village, a call came that today or yesterday we've sighted the crescent within this community. You have to continue fasting from that time till that, and you have the complete fasting for that day. I hope you get that. Contradicting what has been said here. I hope you get that. That's why we say that is what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the case study for this is when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to Medina, he went and met the people fasting the day of Ashura. And then the Ashura people, the people Yahud were asked upon that. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was told that this was the day that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, happened to have get himself out of the torment of Fir'aun. So they are fasting for that day in a honor to that day, to the success and the victory that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam have upon the tyrant Fir'aun. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam remarked that then they are of the people who are best fitting to fast for the honoring of this day. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon that remarked and called his Sahabas to go around to confirm, to tell the people around that today we are fasting, and then they all continue with their fasting. Someone would ask that this is actually a fast which is not compulsory. Before, remember that at that time too, Ramadan wasn't also brought. Understand? Ramadan wasn't brought as a fasting for Muslims at that time. That was the fasting that was there. So that was the fasting that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions fasted. And then he made a remark that if he should be extended his life with, if Allah should extend his life to the next Ashura, then he would fast a day before and that day and day after in order to conflict that of the Yahud. Understand? So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fasted on that day, and then he fasted and then telling the people at that time, remember it wasn't at dawn. Because the day has broken and now the information got them, and then they went and announced to people. Imagine that time would be around 9 o'clock a.m., 10 o'clock and 11 a.m. And they continue their fasting at the end. No one has to repeat it. So what has been said here, we are not using it. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. And we ask Allah to also have mercy upon the author of this book. He have done his best in terms of the information that got him at the time. I hope you are clear on this. So these are needed for us to, in fact, that was the reason why before this we have had a series of sitting why the scholars even have sometimes contradictory view upon issues. And the book that we were using was the Raf'ul Malam Anil A'immatul A'lam, that of Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad bin Abdul Halim bin Taymiyyah al-Kharrani, that we did it in this masjid with a group of people. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. So he said that فَإِذَا قَدَمَ الْمُسَافِرُ مُفْتِرًا, and he's saying that طَهَرَتْ الْحَائِدِ, that if you also travel to a city or a nearby community, and then you happen to be they happen to be fasting, but you have not fasted, what are you supposed to do? Naharan, he said, فَلَهُمَا أَكْلٌ فِي بَقِيَّةِ يَوْمِهِمَا. Then you continue eating, because your ruling was based on where you move from, not where you are going to. I hope you get that. But then the caution is, you don't go and eat publicly when everyone is actually fasting around 5 to 6 p.m. where people are actually exhausted. That is where you have your food very full of a bowl and eating, says that you are actually a traveler. We don't do things like that in Islam. And it says that وَمَنْ أَفْطَرَ فِي تَطَوُّعِهِ عَامِدًا, Allahu Akbar. Anyone who would break his fast, if it is not a compulsory fast, nawafil prayer, for example, Monday and Thursday prayer, fasting, and then intentionally break the fast, what ruling is on you? أو سافرا فيه فأمطر لسفره فعليه القضاء. Then you have to only pay for that. There is no kafara on you. If you intentionally break your fast, intentionally, then there is a need for kafara. But then if you intentionally break a fast, which is actually the tatawwu, that is Monday to and Thursday fasting, for example, or any nawafil fasting intentionally, then the only thing is that you just have to pay it by fasting one day, and it is actually enough for you. He said that وإن أفطر ساهيا فلا قضاء عليه بخلاف الفريضة. That if you also break the fast unintentionally, maybe out of forgetfulness you actually drank water, for example, then there is no any payment on you. Do you understand? Maybe the day of Monday, Thursday, you happen to be fasting, and then you mistakenly drank water. So there is no any payment on you again. It was out of what? Mistake. But if it is intentional, that is where you pay that one. I hope you get that. And then he said, وَلَا بَأْسَ بِالسِّوَاكِ لِصِيَامِ فِي جَمِيعِ نَهَارِهِ. Then you can equally use what? Siwak, that is chewing stick or the toothbrush that we have today. The siwak too can be used, right? وَلَا تُكْرِهَ لَهُ هِجَامًا إِلَّا خِيفَةً تَغْرِيب. That you can do hijama. You know hijama? That is scooping. There is a way of extracting blood from your body. I'm sure you are aware of this. Hijama. Extracting blood from your body for some good health reasons. He's saying that فَلَا بَأْسَ فِيهِ. There is no harm if you do that. But then if the blood is going to ooze thoroughly, then that one would actually make your fasting invalid. I hope you get that. And then he says that وَمَنْ ذَرَاهُ الْقَيِّ فِي رَمَضَانٍ فَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ. If vomiting comes to you unintentionally, then you can vomit, and then your Ramadan is there. It's intact, it's valid. You don't have to pay that back Ramadan, saying that once you vomited, your Ramadan is invalid. No, it's valid, provided that you've not done that intentionally. But then listen what he said. وَإِنِ اسْتَقَاءَ فَقَاءَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ. If you intentionally use your finger to trigger the vomit and it comes out, then there is a need for you to fast as a way of paying back, meaning the fasting you have fasted has been what? Invalid. I hope I'm clear on this point. So take the notes of the following discussion. وَإِذَا خَافَتِ الْحَامِلِ. But then the pregnant woman. So you can see the methodology upon which this book is being written. It was like writing a note, not under subheading. But this one has actually classified that. We would use it to actually deliver, as we said at the beginning of the session. Don't forget that. I just want to see the principle upon which this one has been written. He said that وَإِذَا خَافَتِ الْحَامِلِ عَلَى مَا فِي بَطْنِهَا أَفْطَرَتْ وَلَمْ تُطْعِمْ. A pregnant woman. The ladies that you can hear, the women at home, those who are pregnant, and then she fears that what actually is in her womb, the baby, for example, can be affected when she fasts. Then there's the need for her to what? Eat by feeding the miskin. I know you get that. That is to feed the poor. Feeding a poor. And then we will come to feeding the poor what is supposed to be given to the poor on a daily basis. So she doesn't have to pay it back. She only have to what? Feed a miskin, a needy. I hope you get that. وَقَدْ قِيلَ تُطْعِمْ. وَقَدْ قِيلَ تُطْعِمْ. بطنها أفطرت ولم تؤتي. So listen to what he says. That here she would what? Feed. She would actually feed the poor. But then he says that in his book, look at the methodology. I told you that we are using the Maliki school of thought. He's saying that ما في بطنها أفطرت ولم تطعم. The pregnant woman would actually will not fast the month of Ramadan, meaning if she's actually pregnant and she fears that what is actually in her womb would be affected in one way or the other, she is not going to what? Fast. And he says that what I'm told him, she is not also going to what? Feed the poor. But then وَقَدْ قِيلَ تُطْعِمْ, but it has also been said that she would actually what? Feed the poor person. But the most authentic is that she has to what? Eat. By then there is a need for her to feed the poor person. I hope you get that. So this is one thing you should note. She is not going to fast if she fears for the baby in the home, but then there is a need for her to what? Feed the poor person. And we will come to the amount of things you need to give as a way of what? The feeding of the poor. وَلِلْمُرْضِعِ إِنْ خَافَتْ عَلَى وَالِدِهَا أَوْ وَلَدِهَا. Then a breastfeeding mother, a nursing mother in other words, what is she supposed to also do? He's saying that لَمْ تَجِدْ مِنْ تستأخر له أن أو لم يقبل غيرها أو لم يكن نعم أو لم تطعم قبلها أو غيرها أن تظفر وتطعم. You understand? So what he's saying that if a fasting nursing mother has fasted and she feels that continuous fasting would affect the baby, for example, then there is a need for her to equally what? Feed the poor person. She's not supposed to fast and then as a way of detriment or bottleneck to the baby that she has. So you need to understand all of this. And then she also have this. She could also, maybe if she's a nursing mother, she could actually delay the Ramadan and then after Ramadan and then she pays what she have lost in terms of that. I hope you are clear on this. So she has that options, either fasting after that or she will not fast by feeding the poor, but she doesn't do at the same time. She doesn't do the two things at the same time, feeding at the same time, paying back after that. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. And there is saying that وَيُسْتَحَبُّ لِلشَّيْخِ الْكَبِيرِ إِذَا أَفْطَرَتْ أَنْ يُطْعِمْ وإطعامه في هذا كله مد عن كل يوم يقضيه. That for an old person, someone who is old aged, who old age has grabbed, what he's supposed to do, then it is actually recommended. Look at the word that has been used in the Maliki school of thought, that it is recommended, because if you are old and you are unable to fast, do we hope in the near future you can recover and start fasting? No. I hope you get that. That's why he wouldn't wait after Ramadan and either pay or something. No. So here what he's supposed to do is that he feeds the poor. If he doesn't have it and himself is actually a poor person, then there is no harm doing that. So you need to know what to tell our grandparents, right? الكبير إذا أفطرت أن يطعم وإطعامه في هذه كل مد عن كل يوم. The mud. So this is the magnitude, the quantum of food or the quantum of the thing you are supposed to give out as the feeding of a miskin. That is عن كل يوم mud. Muddin Nabi. Muddin Nabi contemporarily, if you want to measure it, is more than the 1 cup. Are you following? It's more than the 1 cup sugar, for example, but it's less than the half bowl. Are you clear on this? It's more than the 1 cup we have for measuring sugar, for measuring rice and everything, the 1 cup. But it's equally less than the half, what do you call it? Half bowl. You know the Olong cup? The 6 of the cup makes that. So it is actually more than 1 cup, but less than 3 cups. That is the word you need to understand. So that is the modern Nabi. That is what we use for the feeding of the poor. But contemporarily, for example, we don't have such things. What are you going to use? So what is being done is that you look at the community. Today, for example, if you want an average, we always look at the average, not the extreme ends. not the too low, neither the too high. So you look at an average person a day, how much does he spend? Averagely. So if it is maybe in the morning, even in the afternoon, and then in the evening, 10 cedis, then how much is that? 30 cedis, then you give it out for daily basis. I hope you get that. Not for breakfast only. On a day. That's why I said لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ, a day. So you actually give out based on the morning, and then the afternoon, and then the evening as well. So this is what you need to look. And it also varies greatly depending on the community where you have yourself. Living in Kumasi here is quite expensive in terms of what standard of living and cost of living. Going back to the southern sector, maybe in Accra too, is more higher. If you go back to the north too, it's cheaper. So the contemporary scholars there would actually give an estimation, and then it will be used to judge. But then briefly, this is what you are supposed to actually use. So average person would use maybe 10 cedis in the morning, in the afternoon 10 cedis, in the evening 10 cedis, and then the person would actually have to give it out to the miskin. I'm being prompted of the time, but looking at what we still have, is not less, is that much. Anyway, let's try and then see where we could get to with that, inshallah. You know, this is Saturday and Sunday. Some of you have class, right? You don't have a class, but inshallah, let's try and see where we could end. He says that وَكَذَلِكَ يُطْعِمُ مَنْ فَطَّرَ فِي قَضَاءِ رَمَضَانٍ حَتَّى دَخَلَ عَلَيْهِ رَمَضَانِ الْآخَرِ وَكَذَلِكَ يُطْعِمُ. A person that out of negligence, look at the word that has been used, negligence, carelessness, have made the person not to be able to fast the debt on him on the previous Ramadan, then the person would have to feed a person. Maybe you have not been able, you have missed last year Ramadan, let's take almost 5 or 10, and out of that you have not fasted during that all while till when Ramadan is actually now ahead of you, or the Ramadan has even got to you. Now you want to know, what are you supposed to do? What you are supposed to do, this is mostly applicable to the ladies because of their situations. So what you are supposed to do is that you would feed a poor person. That is what is actually captured in this literature, that you would feed the other person, meaning the poor person, based on the measurement we actually brought. In saying that wala siyama ala as-sibyan hatta yahtalim al-ghulam wa tahayyad al-jariyati bi bulughi lazmatin a'mal al-abdan faridatan qala ta'ala wa idha balagha al-atfal minkum al-hulum falyasta'dhinu. That a young boy who is supposed to fast, Islamically we don't use 18 as a maturity date, please. 18 years is not the date, or it's not the years we use to measure, or it's not a benchmark for our measurement when someone is actually matured or not. For a young boy, we're looking at his mumayyizat. If he can actually make difference between right and wrong, then he has to be trained how to fast. The growth of pubic hair is actually another criteria to look. And then the wet dream that the person would have is also another criteria to use. But then for the ladies, the first menstrual cycle is actually a clear determinant to, meaning she is actually what? Matured, and then she is ready for fasting. And as Allah saying that if the young ones actually get to a maturity age where they are able to determine right or wrong, knowing this is appropriate and this is not, then there is the need for them to make istidan, that is to seek permission before they enter your premises. For example, a kid, 2-3 years, he is coming to the room. No need for him to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, because he will be out coming or not. But anyone who have gotten to this maturity stage, there is a need for him to actually seek for permission, and then he will be granted before he enters. You understand? And Allah has dealt with this issue thoroughly in Surah An-Nur, chapter 24 of the Quran. We ask Allah to grant us success on that. I'm trying to see if you could end on this so that as we promise, inshallah, tomorrow we will then continue with that. In saying that, وَمَنْ أَصْبَحَ جُنُبًا, very important point for especially we the guys here. وَمَنْ أَصْبَحَ جُنُبًا وَلَمْ يَتَطَهَّرْ أَوْ امْرَأَةً هَائِطٍ طَهُرَتْ قَبْلَ الْفَجْرِ. طَهُرَتْ قَبْلَ الْفَجْرِ. That if you should wake up in the month of Ramadan, remember we are discussing about month of Ramadan. You wake up and then you have had a wet dream. It is preferable. It is what? Preferable that you bath and then you would continue with whatever you are supposed to. If it is also a lady and then she is actually was in a stage of what? Menstrual cycle and is ending at that night. Then when she wakes up and she realized that it was before Fajr, please take note of this. It was before Fajr, meaning after Isha, the thing broke or ended. And then it was before Fajr. You know that Salat al-Fajr is now on her for her to fast. So what you're supposed to do is that it is preferable if she bathed before actually preparing for her suhoor and all of that. But if time doesn't permit her, in that state, she had made the intention and she could take her suhoor equally to the guy. If you are in a state of what? Major impurity, maybe out of what? Wet dream, and then you have released sperm. That is one thing you should take note. Not just the wet dream, but then the releasing of sperm is actually a fundamental criteria here. So if you have released that, then there is a need for you. If there is no time, you can consume or you can eat your suhoor, and then later on you would bath, and then you continue with your fasting. I hope I'm clear on this. Now, he said that قبل الفجر. He said فَلَمْ تَغْسِلَا إِلَّا بَعْدَ الْفَجْرِ. He said that أَجْزَتْهَا. So this is what we have said. So if she has not bathed, the ritual bath for a lady, it ended after Isha before Fajr, and she realized that the blood has stopped, has ceased, then she can actually eat her suhoor and then continue her fasting, because at that time, Islamically, she is what? Pure, except that she has not purified herself. Do you get the difference? She is pure, except that she has not purified herself. And that is why Allah discusses very gently in Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2 of the Quran when he was discussing about the menstrual cycle of the ladies. It says that وَلَا يَجُوزُ الصِّيَامُ يَوْمِ الْفِطْرِ وَلَا يَوْمِ النَّحْرِ. Then it is not also appropriate for you to fast on the day of Eid. It is not out of Iman to say that today is Eid, I'm fasting, or because I don't have anything. It is actually haram for you to fast on that day. Equally or likewise the day of Nahr, that is the day of Eid al-Adha. The day of what? Eid al-Adha, you are not supposed to actually fast. Fasting on those days are actually haram. وَلَا يَصُومُ يَوْمَيْنِ الَّذِينَ بَعْدَ يَوْمِ النَّحْرِ. And then again, you are not also supposed to fast 2 days after the Yawm al-Nahr. Just Allah says that Yawm al-Hajj al-Akbar. That's the day of what? Yawm al-Nahr. Yawm al-Hajj al-Akbar, as Allah said in Surah At-Tawbah chapter 9 of the Quran. So if you are actually fasting, you are not supposed to fast on that day of Eid al-Adha. Likewise, the 2 days after that, you are not also supposed to fast. But listen to what he actually wanting to climax. إِلَّا مُتَمَتِّعًا إِلَّا مُتَمَتِّعٌ الَّذِي لَا يَجِدْ هَدْيًا. So if someone has actually performed pilgrimage, he is performing Hajj, and he has nothing in terms of what? An animal that he's going to slaughter. For this person, he can fast these 2 days, but not on that day. Am I clear? That day of fasting, the day of the Eid al-Adha, you cannot fast. You are not supposed to fast. But if you don't have an animal, sacrificial animal, then you can actually fast. You can. The word there is can. If, for example, you have had some fasting that you need to supposed to have fasted, then these days are there for you to fast. You can fast. But if you don't fast and then you have actually gotten the means that people were using in terms of the food stuff, because that is what the Prophet Muhammad says, that those days are the day of eating and drinking a takbir. The day of eating drinking and takbir. So it is not appropriate for you to actually keep that day for fasting. In fact, that is the reason why the Prophet Muhammad SAW has made it a sunnah that we will give out zakatul fitr, so that you wouldn't enter a certain house and everyone is actually silent, nothing for them to actually dwell on that day. You understand? وَالْيَوْمُ الرَّابِعِ وَالْيَوْمُ الرَّابِعِ لَا يَصُومُهُ مُتَمَتِّعًا وَيَصُومُهُ من نذره أو من كان في الصيام متتابعا قبل ذلك. So I think we will have to look at that. If, for example, you have a kafara of fasting, you know kafara of fasting, for example, if you commit or if you have sexual intercourse in the afternoon of Ramadan, even if you are married, not talking about those who are not married here, even if you are married and then you have sexual intercourse with your wife, then you have what? Kafara. And then the kafara is to fast 2 months consecutively. The word consecutively here is underlined, bolded, and then highlighted. So it needs to be what? Consecutively fasting for 2 months. So if this person we are taking his issue, right, has to fast, and that fasting happened to be the day or 2 days after the Yawm al-Nahar, this person can continue his fasting. Are you getting that? Do I have to take this issue again? If it is consecutively, because if you intentionally omit 1 day, you need to start from scratch. So next time you won't go back to what you have done. So the discussion here is, please let's take note. If you have a fasting, maybe in Dhul Qada and Dhul Hijjah, you know that are the 2 last months of Ramadan, and then a month of the Islamic calendar. In iddat ash-shuhur inda Allah 12 shahran fi kitabillah, as we started the session in Surah At-Tawbah. And then your days of the kafara, your penalty has actually struck in between those months, and you know that month is where you have the day of what? Eid al-Adha. So you are supposed, you need to and you must fast the 2 days after the Eid al-Adha, but not on that day. I hope you get that. We ask Allah to grant us the understanding. وَمَنْ أَفْطَرَ فِي نَهَارِ رَمَضَانَ نَاسِيًا فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ فَقَطْ. If, for example, in the month of Ramadan, you eat nasiyan, فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ فَقَطْ. The only thing you do is to what? To pay back that only. And this one too, we need to really take note of that. The Prophet Muhammad SAW in the hadith of Abu Hurairah, that anyone who eats in the afternoon of Ramadan, out of forgetfulness, or not knowing, or has been forced to, then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his hadith says that anyone who eats in the month of Ramadan out of forgetfulness in the month of Ramadan in the daytime, then there is a need for him to continue his fasting without paying that day. So for example, 11 o'clock, 12 noon, and then you happen to drink water. What are you supposed to do? Once you actually remember what is in your mouth, you have to spit it out and then continue with your fasting. And you need not to go and then tell people, today, in fact, around 11 o'clock, I got some water and drank. No. You just keep it to yourself and then continue with your fasting. You don't have to go and utter it elsewhere. Likewise, but if you do this intentionally, then there is no need for you to fast that, but then to actually do what? You would pay it back. You would pay it back on that. وَكَذَلِكَ مَنْ أَفْطَرَ فِيهِ لِضَرُورَةٍ مِنْ مَرَضٍ. And then if, for example, in the afternoon time of Ramadan, you happen to break the fast, maybe a severe headache or stomach ache made you to actually break the fast, then there is a need for you to actually continue eating and take your medicine. After that, then you would what? Pay back. That is after the Ramadan. I think on this note, there is a need for us to actually pause. Inshallah, tomorrow, same time like we promised, we would continue to see where we would end it. I think it's just left with some few leaflets to end this, and then we will discuss it based on this arrangement as we said at the beginning of the session, and then the question and answer session too shall be open. On this note, that we call it a day. What we have said in terms of correctness is out of Allah's mercy and favors. We ask Allah to put that in our mizan. And that which we have said out of error and mistake, it is out of our ignorance and less of knowledge. We ask Allah to overlook that and forgive our shortcomings. وصلى الله وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.